What's up YouTube, it's Eric and I'm back with another video. Today's video is going to be about what it's like to own a Tesla Model 3 without the benefits of home charging. I wasn't going to make this video at first because there are so many videos out there already about the Tesla Model 3 and about almost every feature and what it's like to own one, except there are not many videos out there by people that do not have home charging. Basically all the people that do own Teslas that make videos about it at least have home charging solutions, so they don't really discuss what it's like to have range anxiety. They basically say there is none. But if you're like me and don't have a home where you can charge, then it is a consideration. Now, I got my car September 4th, and it's now October 11th. And in that time period, I have put on 2,728 miles. And so I have put on pretty much over 500 miles a week. And, that requires a considerable amount of charging. And I just wanted to say that, it is possible to do it without home charging, but it does require some sacrifices and changes in your lifestyle. And so I would begin to say, if you do not have home charging, I would say that would probably eliminate half the people that want to get a Tesla from realistically getting one, because it would just be too inconvenient to rely on third-party chargers or superchargers. Now, when I committed to getting the Tesla, in the beginning, in my head, I was just thinking, I will just use the superchargers whenever I need them. I'll have to pay for it, but whatever. But then, there were some things about the superchargers that I really didn't want to use them. One is that they were kind of, at least from where I live, they're kind of inconvenient. The closest one is 17 miles away from me, and it's north. And it's not in an area that I ever really go to. Usually all the things I go to are south. And so in order to go to the closest one to me, it would require a 34-mile round trip. And then when you add the 34 miles of range that you lose just by going there and back, and then you account for the time that you're spending driving there, time that you're spending charging there, and then time that you're spending, coming back, you're talking like 2 hours, and it's just something that I didn't really want to do that often. I didn't want to be in a habit of doing that 4 times a week. Secondly, it costs money. I did not get the performance model. I got the all-wheel drive model, but not the performance, and so I have to pay per use for the charging. And 3, they say that it's if you use it constantly, it will degrade the battery, which I definitely did not want to do either. And so I really had to take a different approach and kind of eliminate superchargers as one of the primary ways to charge. And so the way that I have made it work is that even though I don't have a charger at my work, there is a parking garage across from my work that has a charger. And so in my head I was like, that is going to be the focal point of where I get most of my charge, because it will allow me to park, go to work, and then while I'm working, it's charging. The caveat is that they only allow for 4 hours of use per person. And the second thing is that there's only one charger over there, and there's probably 3 or 4 other cars that like to charge there regularly. Yeah, I usually used to get up at work at 9 o'clock, but I kept checking over there when I had my other car, and I realized that 9 o'clock was too late to get there. If I got there at 9, I would have to wait, and then many times I wouldn't be able to get a turn. And so I made a commitment. The first lifestyle change I made was a commitment to getting up earlier. I used to get to work at 9, and then I decided, I'm going to get to work between 7 and 7:30, and that has pretty much enabled me to get there first every time. And so I never really have to worry about getting my 4 hours of charge when I go. But yet, even that was not enough for me to, just use that. And so the other place that I would supplement it with, I would say that I use that about for 60% of my charge. And then I would say for about 35% of my, 35% of my charge is probably from this company called ChargePoint. And what they are is a third-party charging network. It's a free membership to join. I'm not a sponsor or anything. I'm just a user that uses it a lot. And one of the great things about them is that they have a lot of chargers, at least in my area, and there are many chargers that are actually free or free for a period of time. And so that kind of gave me an extra incentive where, I'm a little bit competitive, and I, challenge myself to see how little I could spend on electricity. So I would really, if I could get an opportunity to charge for free, that's where I would go. I'm going to pull up my ChargePoint app on my phone just to give you an idea of my charging sessions and show you that it is possible to not only charge at destination chargers as a full-time thing basically, but to also do it for very cheap. And so I'm going to go into my charging activity, and if you can see, my charging for October is free so far. And if you look, if I scroll down, you'll notice that it's all free or $0. And the difference is free means those stations are free for however long you want to use it, whereas the ones that say $0, they are free for the first couple hours, and then they bump up to like $3 an hour after the fact, which is actually a terrible rate. It's worse than an ICE car. Let me just pull up one other thing. All right, so if I go to trends, so if you can see, my total charge point usage is, I'll try to get this in focus, 196 in September, 55 in October so far. So that's a little over 250 kilowatts that I've put in just via ChargePoint. Other places that I've charged at is I charged at my sister's house one time. I went to a friend's party and charged at their house. And then there's just been some random other non-affiliated chargers that were for free that I happen to run across that I've been using. But mostly I would say the garage across from my work, ChargePoint, and then little other miscellaneous ones. I have used the supercharger twice, and that's the only time I've spent any money on electricity. So I've put on 2,728 miles, and I have spent a grand total of $18. Actually, a little bit less than $18. It was $5.51 for the first charge, and it was $12.19 for the second charge. And the only reason why I had to use a supercharger at those times is that I was dating a girl that went to school about 70 miles south of me, and she didn't have a car. So when we would hang out, I would go down and pick her up, bring her back, and then then drop her off after the weekend and drive back. But doing that thing would take up 280 miles, and while I'm with her, she's not going to accept staying at a charger for a couple hours. So in those couple of instances, I was basically forced to use the supercharger. But $18 for 2,700 miles, not too bad if you ask me. What else? And so my general approach to this is basically I look at each day as a 3-hour commitment to charging. And so if I take any days off, I feel like that three hours rolls over to the next day. And who wants to deal with 6 hours worth of charging that you need to get to just to break even, just to get back to where you were? And so, with my ICE car, I was going to the gas station only 3 or 4 times a month because I would get about 500 miles of range per tank, and I would fill it up all the way, and I would, drive it to near empty when I was done. And so it really took a change in my habits where instead of doing it 3 or 4 times a month, I was thinking 5 or 6 times a week, 6 or 7 times sometimes. Sometimes I would go every single day if I could, because that way I could spread it out. And so I guess the second question would be, when I do go to charge points, what am I doing with that time? What am I doing during that time? Am I just sitting in the car? And the answer is generally no. There are a handful of things that I figured that if I have to go to a charge point where I'm not at work, I'm not at home, I'm at some destination place of it, what am I going to do with the time? And what I decided was there are so many things that I do that I could be doing at those places. I've been trying to read more, so I leave a book in my car, and so if I want to like read a couple of chapters, I'll read a couple of chapters. I'm also a Fitbit addict, and I always try to get my 10K at least. And so if I'm under my 10K, I'll take a walk during that time. I also mess around on my phone a lot. I look at Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and play games on it and stuff. And I was like, if I'm just gonna do that at home on the couch or at my desk, why not do it in the car? Also, it's a great opportunity to clean your car. I love maintaining that new car look, and so I'll wash my car, detail the inside while I'm there. And in extreme events, rare events, is like I anticipated that there might be some day where it's cold. I only got my range depreciated by 30 or 40% because of the cold weather, and I was stuck with like a little bit of miles, and I needed to get like 4 hours or 5 hours more time than basically I had time, more time than I would have things to do to occupy that time. And my solution was I bought a mattress off of Amazon so that I could fold down the back seats and basically take a nap while it's charging. Because I did find a charge point charger close to my house that it's in a secluded place. It's actually behind a middle school administration building, and it's for free. And I figured, you know what? If I'm in a pinch, I'll just drive over there. I'll take a 3-hour nap, 4-hour nap, and I'll get back. I'll get my range back without being restless and figuring out what I needed to do at that time. And so a combination of exercising, maybe if a destination charger is at a place that you can get something to eat, go shopping, whatever. You can do that. You can play on your phone. You can read a book. You can work on your car. These are all activities that I figured, if I'm going to be doing these anyways, I might as well be doing them during the time that the car is getting charged. And it's been my experience so far that I've been pretty diligent with it. In the 5 weeks that I've owned the car, I've probably only gone 5 or 6 days when I didn't charge it the entire day. Usually, every day I'm trying to get at least a couple hours of charge because I keep that thing in my head that 3 hours of charge daily is what I need to get. And so if I can get ahead of the curve, then on a given day, maybe I only have to do it for an hour. And what I've found is that I very rarely go under 100 miles. Usually I'm in the 150 to 250 mile range. Sometimes I'll put it up to like 280 because if I get it to 280, then it's 250 by the time I get back home. And like right now I have 215 miles of range on it, which isn't ideal, but as long as it's above 100 miles, I don't usually worry about it. And that's basically how I've gotten through doing with without home charging. I would say that if you can't charge it at home and you can't charge it at work, it's probably going to be too much for anybody to really sacrifice all that extra time to get it to work. But if you can charge it at home or charge it at work, then you can definitely make it work. Like I said, I've been driving over 500 miles a week, which is more than I usually do. I usually actually only do about 350 a week. But when you get a new car that's as awesome as the Model 3, you want to drive it more, and you want to drive it more aggressively. And one thing that I would say is a benefit to having an electric car over a gas car, other than the price savings, is that let's say I charge it to 280 miles, right? Which is basically the 90%, the most that you should charge it at. I go home, it's 250. When I get up in the morning, it's like 240, 245. But when I get to this garage in the morning, it's over it's like 210 or something like that, and I'm actually gonna not be able to use the 4 hours of charging, right? And so I use those opportunities instead of like getting there and then only charging it for 3 hours to get it to the 90%. What I'll do is I'll just drive more aggressively at that either that night or that morning, and I get my thrills of inefficient driving without really having to affect my range in terms of practical sense, because that 4 hours is basically guaranteed to me. I can, because it's easy to park the car for 4 hours. It's no different to park it for 4 hours or 3 hours when you're at work. And so I use those opportunities to get a surplus of range, and then that way I can use that range more aggressively and then not have it really actually cost me, because I'm going to fill it up to full for free anyways. And that's pretty much how I've done it so far. It'll be interesting to see how I work in the wintertime. It's been summer, fall weather, and so the weather hasn't significantly affected the range as of yet, but I know that in the future it will. And so, I have all these provisions basically that I have mapped out all these charge point chargers. I've mapped out some other chargers, and then, if worse comes to worse, I get the superchargers to go to fall back on. But so far I've spent, like I said, under $18 for 2,700 miles, and I'm hoping to, keep my spending real low. I want to ideally save $100 a month over fuel, which is tough because I had pretty good gas mileage on my Honda Accord. But so far, like this particular month, I've saved almost $200 based on how much I drove. And so I figure every month I can probably save $150 if I'm diligent about it. And so that's my experience with the owning a Model 3 without home charging. You can do it. For me, I don't have a family. And so it's easy for me for time commitments. I can kind of like on my way home if I want, I can go to the Methuen Loop, which is where it has a charge point, and I'll stay there for an hour or 2 hours, and they get like restaurants and shops and whatnot, and I'll just get home at 8 instead of 6, and it's not a big deal because I have nobody waiting for me. So. Anyways, that's my video. Hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comment box below, and I'll probably respond. All right. Anyways, talk to you later. See you.